Okay, so this time let's make ourselves a bird particle system. A bird party, if you will. Look at this sweet bird model. Wouldn't you say it's fly? No, it's pretty terrible. But the important thing is it'll be in the sky. No one will be able to tell. Anyway, what's important with this model is the UVs, because we're going to try and do this in an interesting way. Press Ctrl A. So notice how I've laid the UVs out. I've just done the top-down camera sort of base projection. Now, this is obviously a big no-no if you want to have nice UVs. But for what we're doing, it's mostly just going to be a flat colour in the sky. No one will tell. But the important thing is, these wings, we're going to make these flap without actually animating it. And here's how we're going to do that with this texture. So we're just going to take this texture and notice how if we sort of sit it on top, the main body will be black and the wings will be white with a small sort of fade between. Essentially, this is what's going to control our animation. So it should be quite fun. Let's give it a go. So I've exported these and let's go into our Unreal project and let's just make a new folder, I guess, for view effects. So I'm going to use Cascade for this, but you could easily sort of do this in Niagara, or you could do this even as like a spawning system. You can do this really in any which way you wish. So here's my bird. Let's put it in my scene. It's teeny tiny. Let's scale it up a bunch to say 12. My anchor point's off. I clearly exported off the floor, but it doesn't matter. All right, so here we go. We've got a bird. Now let's do the magical part by opening up our material editor and waiting a second for that material editor to show up. Cool. And we're going to need to drag this texture in. Again, super simple. You can, even though we did the UVs badly, like I say, it's going to be in the sky, you can still texture it to a degree, as long as you've got this. I mean, again, so how I laid this middle part out, you could actually lay this part out nicely if you wanted. You could do it much more, as long as it's only in the black section. That's what will be important with this. So, this thing right here, let's make it a little bit darker, so make it like a bit of a crow. This thing right here is going to be what controls our world offset position. So let's just get a time and a sign. Love a good time sign. That's going to control sort of the flapping motion. And then let's multiply this by this. And then let's multiply that by, I don't know, let's just say 100. This also controls sort of the amount of up and down, the amount of flap that it will have. And then let's make a float 3. Let's just right click and say float 3. And make float 3, there we go. And basically I'm going to wire this into my Z, which essentially means it's only going to go up and down. And so we take the sign. I can't remember if we should multiply it. Should we multiply that? Well, let's find out. Let's just hit that and press save and see what happens. Okay, there you go. We can see the bird is flapping. Look at that. Nice, super simple animation, pre-made. We don't have to worry about rigging or skeleton or any stuff like that. So again, we can control this, the amount of up and down with this value. We could also, the speed, the sign, this period, if we sort of increase that, it would slow down how often or increase the flap. So we could do a few things with that. Anyway, now we know that the bird works okay. Again, minus a couple of scaling issues. Let's make a particle system. And let's call it bird underscore party. Don't know why, that's just how I name all my particle systems. And let's open this up. And you see these lines here? I need to make my geometry crock free, but one thing at a time. Okay, so in this bird particle system, what we're going to do is underneath the stack, we are just going to right click and we're going to say type data and change this to a mesh type data. And then in the mesh type data, once it loads, we're going to drag a bird into there. And at the moment, it's spawning millions of them. We do not need millions of them. So let's simplify it. So let's just take this down to 4. Let's increase the lifetime of them. So I'm just holding shift and dropping them down. Let's just say 20 seconds. Yeah, 20 seconds. That'll sort of do, give or take. Let's decrease the loops. Let's sort of set this to 1. And on the velocity, let's change the velocity. Instead of them going up, I mean, they can have a little bit of up and down. We'll sort of say 20. In fact, let's just sort of say, I don't know, this will be sort of left and right. So again, we'll just say 20, 100, 20, minus 20, 200, minus 20. And let's sort of see how that looks, shall we, real quick. So let's just save that and drag that particle system in our world. And we might have to wait for some shaders to compile. Oh, they're going backwards. So we clearly need some minus numbers. We've only got the 1 bird. 2. Interesting. That's fine. Let's make a couple of tweaks. Let's first of all change that velocity to minus numbers. Let's say minus 200 and minus 400. Let's also change the location in which they're spawning. So let's just add a sphere, and let's just give that sphere a relatively sort of big radius. 200. Yes, and maybe let's increase the spawn. Let's double it. Again, we might need to sort of play with a few values on this. Okay, where are your birds? I wonder if it's because we've still got shaders compiling. Probably is. What else could we mess with over here? So we've got initial size. I mean, to be fair, the size looks alright. The velocity, what we'd probably do to make it a little bit more interesting is we could do like sort of like velocity by life as well. So, because obviously, I mean, if you just want to go straight forward, that's cool. But you could sort of add a couple of array elements. So at the start, so like a 0, it'll just be, 111. How it is. And then let's sort of say at the end as well. So 1 represents 100%. Oops, let's go 111 again. But then let's just say halfway through, maybe the bird decides to go a little bit higher for a bit. So you can mess with the velocity by life as well. I'm looking to get a bit more of an interesting take from this. And ultimately, as long as, if we sort of time it long enough, 20 seconds, it should be, and because we've not got too many, it should be computationally heavy. And again, because we're doing this as a particle system, it should be, hopefully keep it relatively simple. The shader might make it a little bit more complex, but it's also quite lightweight in terms of memory. Let's just add that particle system back in and see where the birds are at. Here we go. So we've got 2 birds flying along, happy-go-lucky. Look at that, it's quite nice, right? Again, so, that's something you can mess with. Shall we do them on a burst? We could sort of, you can experiment. You can sort of do things on a burst, do things with like, and everything, but then if we do things on a burst, it all sort of split the same. Yeah, maybe it's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, if we sort of change this loops back to 0, then we're going to just have like birds spawning all the time. So you see how we got like this army of birds spawning, which might not necessarily be too bad, Obviously don't have, what did I set the required to spawn to 12. Like we sort of set that back to like 1. And then, you know, maybe if you sort of hide these behind something, that wouldn't be too bad. And let's go back to required. Let's sort of change the duration. So instead of spawning every 1 second, let's sort of say they spawn every just 3 seconds. I don't know. Anyway, that's stuff you can sort of mess with, but that's quite cool, I think. I'm going to increase the sphere. So I'm going to constantly just have like birds spawning. Why not? Let's just have that. Increase the spawn radius on that. Maybe increase the randomness a little bit more and like some of the velocity stuff. But there you go. Hey ho. There you go. We got birds spawning, doing their things, flying through objects as did do and whatnot. But yeah. Cool stuff, right? Thanks for watching.